Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to my recap of Season 4, Episode 5 of Power. Ghost is finally free. I've been waiting for this for 5 whole episodes. Before we fully celebrate that, we got to go back and talk about all the wildness that led up to his freedom. Because this episode, girl, boys, rewind. Episode starts off with Angela taking a run. Paz is supposed to be running with her, but she encounters Paz sitting on a bench smoking a cigarette. We haven't seen Sister Paz in a while, and we've missed her because Paz was a good voice of reason. She was good for telling Angela, like, you sound crazy and you're living in a fairy tale, ma'am. Angela's all confused because she realizes now that Jamie didn't kill Greg and somebody actually is trying to frame him. Angela knows she has to do something, but she's not sure what. She knows if she comes forward, this will probably be the nail in the coffin for her. Paz is very straightforward. You have to tell the truth. Bless her heart. Angela spends the whole episode trying to make things right. First, she goes to Mike, of all people, but that is her boss, and she tells him about what she saw in the video. Mike is like, what difference does the gun make? Because the gun has already been thrown out of evidence, and there are still fingerprints placing Jamie at the crime scene. And of course, he doesn't want Angela to pursue it because he's Greg's killer. Angela then goes to Proctor and she tells him about the tape, and Proctor's like, there's nothing I can do because remember the FBI got me kicked off the case for a conflict of interest. She does go to the jail to meet with Jamie and Terry. Angela doesn't tell them that she's seen this tape, which is evidence that Jamie never had the gun, doesn't know anything about the gun, and more importantly, is being framed. Angela tells Terry and Jamie that the prosecution thinks that this $7 million check is payment from Tommy to Ghost for killing Greg. Ain't nobody paying $7 million to kill Greg. Stop it. He's like a $250,000 kill at best. Maybe $1 million. I'll give him $1 million because he's FBI and that's like a really big deal to kill an FBI agent. $7 million for Greg? In what world? Jamie, he's like brooding and he's taking his angst out on Terry because he's mad Turtle's no longer on the case. Terry has no time for James' foolishness or shenanigans or feeling bad about himself. He's like, look, I'm standing between you and the needle. Harsh, but no lies were told. Terry says there must be something in James' account or James' business dealings that are making the FBI go after him. And he's like, they only really do that when there's a RICO charge or a kingpinning charge. He asked James point blank, is there any illegal businesses that you may be involved in that would come up in an FBI search? And James is like, no, there's nothing of the sort. Why are you lying to your lawyer? If you're not going to be honest with yourself, if you're not going to be honest with your priest, the person you need to be honest with is your lawyer. Because what you don't want is your lawyer putting you on the stand, asking questions that the lawyer thinks they know the answer to, and then surprise, surprise, information comes out at the hearing and your lawyer is unprepared. Terry doesn't believe him anyway. He goes and talks to Tasha. Tasha lies to him too. She tells Keisha later that she's afraid if he knew the truth about who the St. Patricks actually were, he wouldn't work as hard on the case. Let me tell you something about Terry. Terry knows who you are, and Terry doesn't care as long as your checks don't bounce. He's a criminal defense lawyer. His morals ain't set up like the rest of us. Terry is like, does this check clear? Okay, keep them hours billable. Tasha and James are both denying any nefarious business dealings. Terry's like, you know what? Tasha, I'm gonna put you on the stand. She's super scared. She tells Keisha as much when Keisha's at the house. And Keisha, ma'am, it was your idea not to tell Tasha about this relationship that you think you're having with Tommy. But you get this text and then you go on and on about this white boy with some flavor, and Tasha knows who you know. Y'all been best friends since 2nd grade. If you're gonna start talking about a white boy with some flavor, who else is it gonna be but Tommy? You telling on yourself, girl. At the much anticipated asset hearing, the best thing happens. James comes out in a pretty gray suit. I asked for this suit last recap. My God. Omari Hardwick is a work of art. Remind me one day to tell you the Patty Pie story about Omari Hardwick. The plan for the asset hearing was that Tasha was going to take the stand. Instead, Terry calls Jamie to the stand to speak in his own defense. Jamie says that the check was very legitimate, that Truth had hired a security firm, his funds were low because he was doing a bigger business deal, and Tommy loaned him some money to cover the business operations. The prosecution is very confused that Jamie is going to be on the stand, but because he's on the stand, it opens him up for questioning. Mike is like, you know what? I got this. So he keeps needling at Jamie, and Terry gave Jamie advice before about doing that angry black man thing on the stand. We saw Black Jonathan shoot a huge hole in the prosecution's case when he went off on the stand, and the result was the gun getting thrown out. But Ghost, because, you know, he don't like to listen, Ghost goes off. He ends up calling Agent Knox Greg, which implies a deep familiarity. So even though Jamie's insisting that he didn't kill Greg, calling him Greg is very plaxico. The judge peeps everything and he says he'll get back to them with the judgment. Back at the prison, bizarre things are happening. Old White runs up on Charlie Murphy. He's like, hey, I heard you were being transferred. Heard James was the one that dimed you out. Charlie Murphy, of course, does not like James at all. He thinks he's a cop killer. But Charlie Murphy runs up on James in the weight room again. He provokes him. Oh, how your little nigglets doing? How you gonna call somebody's children nigglets? Jamie held it together when Charlie Murphy was talking about having sex with Tasha. But when he talked about the kids was gonna call him daddy, Jamie went full Future. They get into a fight. He bashed Charlie Murphy's head in with some weights. Look, this is Charlie Murphy's last televised role. He didn't have to go out like that. Like, oh my God. Jamie comes back to reality. Old White and Biscuit. Remember Biscuit? Biscuit was the one that was like, I like your baby seal eye. I will never be able to say that with a straight face. The plan was to kill Jamie, but Old White decides to kill Biscuit instead. And he's going to frame Biscuit in a murder-suicide. Like, Biscuit killed Charlie Murphy and then killed himself because he didn't want more time in prison or probably the death penalty for killing the CO. Jamie changes clothes with Biscuit. Charlie Murphy's body is on the ground. They walk out like they're, you know, two partners in a buddy film. I don't understand. So none of Jamie's DNA is going to be on Charlie Murphy? People are going to walk in and find this swinging body and like a dead CO and no one's ever going to do a DNA test? They're just going to be like, oh, Biscuit must have killed him. Case solved. Like, it's interesting as a plot, but I'm just like, in the real world, does that work? Tasha and Jamie might like lying to the lawyer, but Tommy is like, the buck stops with me. He rolls up on Turtle and he tells him the truth about this asset investigation. Tommy's going through things this episode, and not that this is any different than every episode. He's under an incredible amount of stress, which, you know, tends to happen when you're running a drug organization. His business partner Patar gives him a call. He's like, hey, the folks in Chicago, the big bosses, they're worried because Jamie's still under investigation by the FBI, and that's a little too close for comfort. The club has been shut down. They were moving a whole bunch of money through there. Dre takes it upon himself to throw some individual parties. He's trying to do his part to help, and also low-key to undermine Tommy and Julio because he wants to be distro. Speaking of Julio, bring back more sex like that. I don't want to see no more Tommy and Keisha sex because that just ain't got no chemistry. And maybe it's because Tommy is like, hey, I'm not really feeling her. Back to Julio. That was some good sex. But back to Tommy. Tommy gets a call saying that he needs to report to Chicago expeditiously. He is not sure if he's going to be able to return. Things aren't really looking good for him. Ghost has a new visitor in jail. It's the return of our non-friend, Simon Stern. Remember him? He was Ghost's boss for one season, and he tried to take truth from Ghost, and that didn't really work out well. Stern has heard about Ghost's financial troubles, and he is back to offer some financial assistance. Of course, this means that Stern is going to have Ghost back under thumb. And Ghost is like, hell no, I'm not doing it. This perhaps should have been something that you relate to your wife, sir, because Stern also reaches out to Tasha. Tasha's like, hell no, I don't want your money, but I'll take your card. And at the end of the episode, she calls Stern and is like, yeah, I need you to float me a little bit of money to get us through these difficult financial times, seeing as how my husband ain't so reliable. Jamie did that to himself. For someone who manages a big drug organization, he doesn't manage his personal finances very well. Where is Tasha's mama? Bring her back, because that woman has some good sense. We need a voice of reason. You know what we also need Tasha's mom for? Somebody need to watch Tariq's little... Tommy checks in with Tariq and is like, hey, is everything good? What's going on? Y'all saw Tommy step on Tariq's bed with his shoes on. No black person in their right respectable mind is going to step on some other black person's bed with their shoes on. I really don't like you near my bed and your street clothes. I definitely don't want you putting your nasty ass fully covered outside the street feet on my damn bed. Who does that? He's talking to Tommy about sex. This conversation is so much different than the conversation that would happen if Raina was like, yeah, I'm 14, 15, and I just had sex. No one freaks out. There's no shaming. Tommy's just like, well, did you use a condom like we talked about? Is this how men talk to boys about sex? Tariq, where did you have the sex? Tariq says he was out with friends. Which friends? What friends were you out with? You would think Tariq would just say, hey, I was out with some of my 14 and 15-year-old friends, some people from school, perhaps. Tariq is like, no, I was out with Dre. And then never calls Dre to be like, hey, I need you to cover me. Of course, Tommy rolls up on Dre and he's like, oh, you're doing this little party. Great, I approve. But in more important matters, why you took Tariq to a party and let him have some random sex? Dre is like, I dropped Tariq off. He has enough sense to cover Tariq in that sense, but he was like, I didn't take him to no party. Tommy's like, if anything happens with this family, I need to know first. Tommy dips, which is a really great thing, at least for Dre and at least for Kanan, but not for Tariq, because Kanan shows up at the party. Sir, are you not concerned that Dre's boss, Tommy, would be at the party where his drugs are being distributed? Apparently not. Kanan rolls up at the party, and Julio, our friend Julio, sees Kanan talking to Dre. So now at least Julio knows that Kanan is alive. Hopefully, next episode, Julio can be like, hey, I saw Kanan at the party that Dre threw. Save this child before it's too late, which it already might be. Because the end of the episode, Tariq rolls up at the trap house. He's like, oh, Anika Noni Rose is back. She don't mean nobody but herself and possibly Kanan any good. Tariq's ass is kidnapped again. And not only is he kidnapped, he's about to be held for ransom so they can get Ghost money. And then the plan is to kill Tariq and Ghost. This little, I'm trying not to use that word to describe children. Tommy's at Tasha's house. Tasha got questions and need answers. Are you and Keisha? Something going on? Tommy finally says, yeah. She's like, Tommy, you can't be playing with this girl's feelings because she will dime us out. You understand that? Their conversation about Lakeisha seems like they were talking in a circle about possibly killing that girl if she doesn't keep her mouth shut and behave as planned. The other interesting part of this conversation is that Tommy confesses to Tasha that he killed Holly. He didn't mean to do it. He kind of had to do it. Tasha looks a little horrified for a moment, especially because Holly was pregnant. Tommy's like, I didn't know she was pregnant. I wouldn't have killed her if I knew. Tasha has some judgment in her face. It clearly passes over. And she's like, well, you had to do what you had to do. We're family. And so now there's a new hearing. And the prosecution is very confused about what this hearing is about. As it would turn out, Angela has been trying to tell anyone who could listen about what she knows about James' innocence. No one in the prosecution wants to hear her out. She didn't tell Terry and Ghost when she went to the prison. She's taken it upon herself to just flat out tell the judge what's what. Angela gets on the stand and wants to testify about a pattern of prosecutorial misconduct. Ma'am, you are the prosecutorial misconduct. Your whole department is corrupt, including you. She tells the judge about the tape where Ghost is being set up. She says that after reviewing it, she now realizes that she was wrong and Ghost is innocent. Mock and Mike flip out. They spill the tea about Angela having a sexual relationship with James and also with the deceased FBI agent, Greg. The judge is livid. He's like, dear James, you are free to go, sir. I am sorry this court has bothered you. James is finally free. It took 5 episodes, but we got our boy back in the world. Angela has finally been suspended. She got suspended, Mike got suspended, and I'm going to guess Mock got suspended too. Angela's feeling very self-righteous. When Ghost says thank you to her after he's freed by the judge, Angela's like, I didn't do it for you. It was the right thing to do. Whatever, you did it nonetheless. Thanks, chick. Mike gets in the elevator with her. They both got boxes because they both been suspended. No, I'll give this lady credit. She will not be taken down a notch. She's like, I'm going to find Greg's killer and bring him to justice. Ma'am, you're talking to Greg's killer. At the St. Patrick residence, Terry has stopped by to see Tasha and give her a wrap up about the case, which Jamie's free now, so Terry's going to move on to something else. He advises her that she needs to get someone to float the family some money while the FBI unfreezes all of their accounts. It's me or Terry and Tasha were low-key flirting, because that hug lasted a beat too long and there was like a rub down of the shoulder, and I was like, wait, are you trying to the wife of the killer that you just got out of jail? Like, what happened to all your righteous talk about people, their choices, and their character? Honestly, Sir Terry, I like you a whole bunch. I think you're a bag of fun, and I hope you continue to be with us this season. But that whole speech you gave Jamie about character, you're a defense attorney. You help free people that you know did criminal shit. Sir, your character ain't really all that well aligned. Last but not least, Jamie's on his way out of jail. Old White gives him a cell phone and he's like, hey, have your boy Egan call me. There's nothing Jamie can do about it. Dude just got you off a life in prison / death penalty charge again. You owe him a huge favor, and really what he's asking for to pass a phone along ain't that much. I'm excited to see what's going to happen next week, because this is just a whole game changer for the season. Tariq is kidnapped again. Tommy, we may never see him again. Tasha has involved Stern back in the financials of the St. Patrick household. So That's my recap. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know what you thought of the season. Celebrate with me if you're happy that James is finally out of jail and that Julio puts his back into it. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Seriously, please subscribe. I got big ambitions for this channel and I need a little help. Okay, that's everything.